My husband and I have been together for 15 years. And for most of that time, I was focused on building my career. I love what I do and I enjoy working hard. And I was content with that decision. We were living in Australia at the time, and I remember passing a cafe, and there was a sign outside that said, "Perhaps it requires courage to have children." I wasn't even sure at the time that I wanted to have children. 4.5 years ago, we moved back to Nairobi, and I met and continue to meet women who are scoring goals in their professional lives, and their mums at the same time. So that helped me to make the decision that I wanted to start a family. And I was content with that decision. It didn't take long for us to get pregnant. I remember being in the bathroom in our apartment, waiting for the 2 little lines to appear in the home pregnancy test. And when they did, we were so excited. I took all this to be a sign. I got really, really attached to the life that was growing inside me. They say you shouldn't in the early stages, but I did. My husband would come home in the evening and he would say, as usual, "How are you?" And I would say, "We are fine," as in me and the baby. While all this was happening, my mom and I decided to go up country to do some work. And I wanted to make a bonding trip of it. So I cleared my calendar so I didn't have any work that week. My mom was to fly down on a Tuesday, and I was to go by road the day before. So off the driver and I go. We're chatting in the car, we're bantering, we're laughing. It's a sunny day. Life is good. About 5.5 hours into the journey, though, my stomach starts to ache. I don't want to panic, but I'm nervous. I do this thing when I'm physically uncomfortable or in pain. I take deep breaths in through my nose and out through my mouth because it helps calm my mind, because I have the kind of mind that can easily run away from me. So we continue driving, but the pain doesn't stop. After a while, I said to the driver to please pull over at one of these roadside shopping centers. You know how it is when you're going up country. I go to the bathroom, and I notice that I'm spotting. It's a light bleeding, but still, I'm bleeding. Deep breath in, deep breath out. The next thing I did, I was reluctant to do because it would have been tantamount to admitting that there was something seriously wrong. But I went into the shopping center, and I bought sanitary towels. The rest of the ride, I was pretty subdued. The pain was only getting worse. By the time we reached my family's home, up country, my body was aching, and the bleeding was heavy. I remember sitting in the bathroom, again, thinking, am I gonna make it? I phoned my husband, and I remember thinking, I don't want him to worry. I mean, what can he do? I'm 200 plus kilometers away. That night was very difficult for me. My stomach is cramping, heavy bleeding. I felt really alone. I mean, I was alone, really. The next day, things were not any better. I said to the driver, "You need to take me to the airport." I was on autopilot. I said to him, "I'm losing my baby." And I remember him saying, "No, Cece, don't think like that. Everything's going to be fine." I pick up my cell phone and I call the airline because I need to book a ticket. And then it dawns on me that the airport is a 2-hour drive away. When you're in pain, you want everybody to know that you're hurting. I remember wanting to scream into the phone, telling the person, can you just get on with it? I need this ticket. But of course, I didn't do that. My father is buried there, up country. And I had wanted to go and say hi to him. But the idea of talking to my dead father as I'm losing my baby was too much. I couldn't do it. So I left without paying my respects to my dad. That drive was awful. 2 hours, pin drop silence in the car. It was then that I remembered I needed to call my mom to tell her about the change of plan. And I remember my mom in her calm voice saying to me, it's going to be fine. And I guess that's what moms do. They reassure you even though they suspect that the situation might not be good. I was so weak by the time we got to the airport, the driver had to help me to the door of the ladies' room. And once again, I found myself sitting in there, wondering if I'm going to make it. So we get to Nairobi, and my husband picks me up from the airport. I really don't feel like talking at that stage. We go to the hospital to see my OBGYN, and she recommends an ultrasound. Now, how this hospital is designed is the building where her clinic was is separate to the building where you do the ultrasound. So I just remember the two of us trudging off to this other building, and I remember thinking to myself, is this really happening? I don't know, I guess in my mind I had thought things would be different if you're losing a baby. I saw all the things I used to see, the flower vendors, the fruit sellers, the pedestrians, the cars, but it was like I was having an out-of-body experience. So we get eventually to the relevant room, and the technician starts the ultrasound. So I'm lying there, and he's very quiet. He's not saying anything, yeah? And I see him looking at his screen, and he's conducting the ultrasound. I'm lying over here. He's not saying anything. And then he says, "Are you sure you were pregnant? Because I'm not seeing anything." That was my first experience of insensitivity at the hands of a healthcare practitioner. And it sucks. Again, I'm thinking, is this really happening? So we leave. Again, we're walking now back to the OBGYN. I tell her what the technician has said, and she says, "Cece, that can't be right. You were pregnant. I tested you. I checked you. You were pregnant." So she sends me home, and we agree that we would meet the next day. By this stage, my whole body is aching, and I'm on autopilot. I decided to run a hot bath, and while I was there, it was then that my body chose to expel what is called the product of conception. Such a clinical word for somebody that meant so much to me. They don't tell you what happens when you have a miscarriage. I remember my husband and I sitting in our living room, and we just cried. I think that was the day I really understood what marriage is. I didn't go back to the OBGYN the next day. I just told her what had happened. That week was very difficult for me, and remember, I had cleared my schedule, so I couldn't even hide behind seeing clients or having meetings. I remember on one WhatsApp group, people were laughing and chatting about how irritating their kids were, and I didn't find it funny. I had to get away, so I chose to go to a cafe. It was a weekday, and usually that cafe is quite empty. I remember sitting down, I ordered my drink, and 3 fully pregnant women come and sit next to me. It's like I couldn't get away from it. I just wanted to scream, but of course I didn't. I'm still on autopilot. I called a friend of mine in Australia, And she said to me, Cece, I have no doubt that you're going to have a baby. But she reminded me that there was a time when I wasn't even sure I wanted one. And it was then that it also hit me that all my achievement, all this scoring goals, here was one instance where all that wasn't going to help. I was truly humbled. I started thinking about what I had eaten the day before, whether it was a mistake to have traveled by road. Then I started thinking, I'm too old, maybe I've left it too long. I was 36 at the time. All these thoughts. I called a few of my friends and I told them what had happened. And I was really surprised at how many had been through something similar or knew a woman who had been through something similar. And I just remember asking myself, why aren't we talking about this? Because when you're in that situation, you automatically think there's something wrong with you. So, let me be someone who says it out loud. Miscarriages happen. They're actually quite common. And just because you have one or even two, it doesn't mean you can't go on to have a healthy baby. And 15 months later, that's exactly what happened to me. Thank you. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and I named her after my father. When people ask me, people who don't know me, when they ask me if she's my firstborn, it doesn't feel honest to say that she is. It may sound strange to you, but it makes perfect sense to me. My daughter is my secondborn. So, what does love have to do with all this? Well, I don't want to pretend that I didn't have a miscarriage. I got pregnant, I loved my baby, and before I could meet him or her, I lost my baby. It's a different kind of love, but it's still valid. Thank you.